So we're continuing to follow sort of two stories that are coming together. One is this brewing civil war within the Republican Party. Told you last week, just as one data point, 13 Republicans voted in favor of Joe Biden's $1.2 trillion, the eventual $1.2 trillion stimulus package, 13 Republicans crossing party lines to vote in favor. Trump Republicans immediately demanding the removal of those 13 Republicans. Just one data point in this growing civil war, and we've looked at others. That's one story, which we're going to talk about today. The second is what's going to happen in 2024 in terms of Trump running versus not running and the relationship with Mike Pence, et cetera. Well, we have one story that brings both of these two elements together. One of the former White House communications directors under Donald Trump, Alyssa Farah, was on CNN over the weekend and said, number one, Mike Pence is now ashamed of Donald Trump. And number two, she believes that Pence or someone else like Ron DeSantis or others are going to run against Trump in 2024 in the Republican primary if Trump runs, and will try to go after Trump's voters. Now, there's so much to talk about here, so many different aspects to this that are important. But let's first look at what exactly Alyssa Farah said when she appeared on CNN. And we know from the Trump side, his contempt for Mike Pence is very clear, telling him don't be the P word. I don't know if I can say it or not, with regard to his behavior on January 6th and not stopping the certification of the vote, which, of course, Mike Pence had no authority to do. Defending, as I told you earlier, the calls to, quote, hang Mike Pence on January 6th from his own supporters. We know Trump's ire towards Pence. Here is the first indication, direct indication that we have from someone who would know that Pence is ashamed of Trump as well. Let's listen.
So why did Pence talk to him after this? I mean, that was something as just an observer, you know, here you have protesters chanting, hang Mike Pence and all this going on, and yet they still talked after the insurrection. Why is that? What do you make of that?
So to the best of my knowledge, I think Pence by default is somebody who's very deferential to both the chain of command and the institution of the presidency. And I think he would always take a call from Donald Trump. He would always take a meeting if one was requested from him. I think that those must have been very awkward and tough conversations.
Also,
I've always known Mike Pence to be a person of deep character and conviction. So I don't doubt that in those private communications, he communicated how bad that was and how inappropriate it was, but not for him, but for the country. But yeah, I can't imagine that was a comfortable conversation. And I think that you're going to see a bit more distancing as time goes on. Look, there's aspects of the record they did together that I know Pence is proud of, but I know he is ashamed of that day. He's ashamed of how the former president conducted himself.
Wow.
So we expect that Donald Trump will run again for 2024. Do you think that Pence will run against him?
So I think he will, and I'm saying this with no knowledge outside of, you know, any special knowledge on it.
But it's informed speculation, let's be honest.
I do think that there's this belief that people are just going to clear the field for Trump. I actually think some folks are teeing up to run. I think Pence could be one of them. I think DeSantis might be one of them. I think Mike Pompeo is looking at a political team and what that could look like. And it's a good thing for the party. A coronation of Donald Trump would be the worst thing both for the party, but more importantly for the country.
Interesting.
So we're going to need to have out these debates on the stage, by the way, of was the election stolen? And that's going to be a tough question for some of these folks to answer, because some have
That would be a fascinating debate to see Republicans have in the primary in 2024.
really towed the line of the big lie. So I'd love to see some folks run who are going to acknowledge the truth and the reality and actually just try to win over more voters.
Wow.
So you do think from your perch, which is a good perch because you used to be press secretary for Pence, you think he will, from your view. What makes you think that, and what do you think that would be like? Because all we have seen from Pence and Trump is Pence being deferential to Trump and being a loyalist to Trump. What do you expect?
I think that Pence knows he's uniquely positioned in that he can tout the record and the things that so many
So this is where she goes off the rails.
Americans are still wish he were in office, the 74 million people who voted for Trump, but without a lot of the downside. Now,
Okay, so let's discuss this. First of all, this is great from the standpoint of hurting Republicans by having them hurt themselves by fighting amongst themselves. I've said before, it's really terrible. It's sad. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating that Democrats have so little going for them that essentially they have to hope that the right just damages itself. And That's a disastrous place to be in. It means you have very little going for yourself. It's an extremely low standard. But to the extent that we want the right to fight amongst itself, what Alyssa Farah is pointing out here is fantastic. Pence ashamed of Trump. Trump is furious with Pence, whatever the case may be. They may run against each other. They may be going after the same voters. That's great. But one thing you have to realize from a practical standpoint is anybody supporting Donald Trump today is not voting for Mike Pence in 2024 unless something radical happens. And what I mean by that is that the people still supporting Donald Trump, and by supporting him, I don't just mean I voted for him and I probably would again. I mean the people still supporting Trump's message today of the election was stolen and it was all rigged and Pence was bad and he did an unpatriotic thing and all these different things. You were so aggressively committed to the whole cult, if that's your belief, that you're not voting for Mike Pence in 2024 in a Republican primary. So the idea that there's so much to fight over in terms of swaying voters in 24, I think Alyssa Farah is wrong on that. But I'd love to see them try because it will damage themselves. But here's the second part of it. Alyssa Farah talks about Pence can go and run on the record of Trump Pence, on the accomplishments. What is she talking about? See, this is where I continue to say, just because we come across a Republican that says like one or two reasonable things, like Joe Biden really won, Liz Cheney is an example. These are still outrageous Republicans who believe crazy things, like Pence has a record to run on. It's completely delusional, first of all, to think that Mike Pence has a political future of any serious kind in the United States. He served as a sort of shield, arguably, to the most incompetent president in history, Donald Trump, to, I guess, help him win some religious voters. And I think he probably did do that, particularly in 2016. And now those very aggressive Trump voters hate Pence because Pence didn't help Trump steal the 2020 election. Who is Pence's constituency, really? Because if you believe it was stolen, then you believe Pence did something wrong by not taking it for Donald Trump. And if you don't like Trump, you've bailed on Trump long ago, and you probably realize that there are no accomplishments to speak of. So it's kind of like a Jeff Sessions type situation. So very interesting to hear from Alyssa Farah. I think she's way off on the idea of Mike Pence having an independent political future.